What we're referring about today is Charles Jagusah, who is going to be out for the year with a pectoral injury, which is not fun to deal with. It is an injury that I suffered when I was in college as well. I am praying for his recovery, but that absolutely sucks for Notre Dame.
Well, now becomes another question. Joe, you are replacing a big-time left tackle. You had a really good player that in Jagusah that you thought that you were going to put there.
Mm-hmm.
I do question if there's a team athletic enough that legitimately, can, I still think that they could be fine during their schedule run. When they get in the playoffs against better and more athletic defenses, I think that it could be an issue for them if they're able to get there, clearly. I mean, but it would be an issue, I think, potentially there. Joe, thank God you got a very athletic quarterback. And to be honest with you, with a guy that had an injury last year, when you have an offensive lineman that does go down, it can be an issue.
Well, the one thing that I'm mostly concerned about is, one, you just talked about how we lost Joe Alt. Joe Alt moved on to the NFL, and he was a very premier player. But I wasn't worried, and I think a lot of Notre Dame fans weren't worried about the expectation for what was next. And Charles Jagusah, there were high expectations based on what we saw in practices, based on what we saw in the Sun Bowl and the performance that he had. The thing that worries me the most is, yes, what you mentioned, having to go on that playoff run. I am worried about who steps up and has to match up with Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones against Florida State. I worry about week one, who is going to have to go toe-to-toe with Nick Scourton, because I'm telling you right now, Mike Elko is the type of coach that is going to say, you know what, whatever young kid that you're going to put out there, we're going to go beat the shit out of him every single play, and we're going to send Scourton after him every single snap. That could end up being a really brutal outing, and that was something that we mentioned was going to be a difficult battle. Sullivan Absher, who I'm not even has caught up on, because I didn't even think that this kid was going to even step on the field. But it could be really, really tough sledding in week one.
Not only that, Joe, let me ask you, I don't think that, there's a legitimate chance that the line moves significant. Does Jagusah get, is he a point and a half going down in that game? I don't know. But, Joe, you got a new OC, a new quarterback, game one, new left tackle gets hurt. Joe, that game, all right, you keep look, I'm not playing when I say this, and I mean this. That game at Kyle Field just got a little bit more hairy. I mean, we both said that could be potentially a 7-point game. Joe, I mean, you talking about a 3- and 4-point game now? In reality, don't forget what the line says. Joe, if Nick Scourton goes off, then what?
Well, this is where, and again, we've talked about this game a number of times. That has the opportunity to be a huge momentum builder for Notre Dame. If they go out there and they play that game strong, they win the game, they win it by a touchdown, it is a galvanizing point where the rest of their schedule until they face Florida State and USC at the end of the season, it's a pretty light stretch. So you beat Texas A&M, you start to build confidence, and you're not really getting challenged. And then you're at that high point where you get to face Florida State at home. That is so significant for your season and your expectations. But if this is a really tough out, if they lose, I think it really derails any momentum that they have. And then if it's maybe a close, very short point win victory, I don't know what the expectation coming out of that would be. But it just sucks that the first game of the year that they're going to have to throw somebody in there that's unexperienced, when that was already the case. But said unexperienced player that was supposed to go in was somebody that there were, lofty expectations of how he could perform.
Look, let me just say this, okay? Because, and I'm dead serious when I say it. You can argue with me all you want to. It is what it is. Marcus Freeman cannot help that his premier left tackle goes down, and Jagusah can't help that whatsoever, right? However, Joe, they're also having some issues in recruiting. Steve Wilkfong is reporting that Deuce Knight is potentially.
Okay, he hasn't decommitted yet. He hasn't decommitted yet, so let's wait until he decommits. He hasn't decommitted yet. Look, I have heard more about this than I wish I did.
Okay, we'll start getting to reality here. Can I get to my main point here? Freeman needs a big win. He needs a massive win because, Joe, perception right now is starting to become a little bit of reality. Are you going to sit here and argue with me that they don't need
I'm not going to argue with you over the Deuce Knight thing because I heard from multiple people that they think that thing is imminent. But at the same time, he has also very recently told the whole Notre Dame recruiting class that he had no intention to go anywhere. He could decommit. I just don't want to react to that until that does happen. It probably very well will end up happening. Apparently, though, Absher's not next up at left tackle. Emil Wagner, who is one of the backups, I think, right now is potentially who could be next up, or Tosh Baker could be who's playing at that left tackle spot. Tosh Baker has played some, so that might not be as gaudy of a situation.
Okay, well, at least this happened early in camp, and you can figure some things out here.
That's true.
That if there is a very, but Joe, that is a position and that is a situation. Joe, name off all the backups you want to. It doesn't matter. Someone's going to have to step up in that position.
I'm just trying to correct myself. I texted somebody to give me clarification so we weren't running with the wrong
I got you. What I'm trying to say here is I do think Marcus Freeman needs a PR win. The next PR win that he can get at the current moment is going on the road in the SEC to Texas A&M and winning. Now you have potentially – now I don't know this gentleman, but a lot of people in the scout world say they love him. I forget the guy's name. But he's got Scourton as the number 1 overall player on his big board. Okay, so you're talking about a guy, I'll find it if you need it. But if Scourton is as good as you and all these people think from a draft perspective, what's he going to do to a true freshman, a red-shirted freshman that has seen zero action?
Well, it's going to be somebody who's slightly more experienced than that. But you're 100% right. That's where my main concern comes from. Is this kid Scourton is going to be a first-round pick. He is going to be a highly coveted prospect. And for him to step in and have to square off with a guy who's got barely any reps underneath his belt, it could be a really brutal game. The bigger part, too, is what's the deal with Riley Leonard, who is coming off of being injured last year. We're hoping that he's fully healthy and ready to go. And he's stepping into a spot where if he's maybe just like at the final 95% and he gets hit, and he gets hit on his blind side, that could be just a total brutal end to expect just any thought of what would happen during the season.
Nick Scourton's not that only defensive lineman that is turning heads. Now, Joe, fall camp is fall camp, right? Like, I mean, you can't take too much out of fall camp sometimes because they blow out of proportion. Texas A&M right now is the people that are at camp and watching all these practices are legitimately coming out here saying Shamar Stewart has been unblockable.
Shamar Stewart's another. Well, he's going to be playing in the interior, and the Notre Dame's interior offensive line.
I don't care where they're playing. That's just another dude that you have to add into here. Yeah. Joe, I'm getting really close to picking Texas A&M week 1.
Dude, I mean, do it. Go ahead. I'm not going to push back on you picking Texas A&M, and I think it makes things more entertaining for you and I yelling at each other on Saturday when that game kicks off. This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/trainingcamp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training's expensive, folks. The first month for only $10. when you use that code Ruffino Joe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.